into fighting the war, we better talk about the battles, particularly the battle names. If you've ever studied the Civil War, you'll notice that battles have two different names, a northern name and a southern name. Now, some battles don't have that, but some battles do. So why the two different names? Well, the North is going to typically name battles after geographical features. They're going to, particularly rivers and creeks, all right? So, for example, our first battle that we're talking about, Bull Run, is going to, that's the northern name, because Bull Run is a creek that runs through the battlefield. The South, however, is going to name it after the cities that it was or the closest city that's fought at. So, for example, when it comes to this first battle of Bull Run, it's going to be the first battle of Manassas. And so you have these different names. You're also going to see, when it comes to, if you ever look at the names of Confederate and Union armies, the Union armies typically named their armies after the rivers. All right, so the Army of the Potomac, the Army of the Cumberland, the Army of the Tennessee. Whereas the South typically will name it after states. Now, we do have a Confederate Army of the Potomac, so that kind of gets confusing a little bit. But nonetheless, you'll see like the Army of Northern Virginia and even the Army of Tennessee. So whenever you talk about like the Army of the Tennessee and the Army of Tennessee, you have to make sure that you are clear of what you're talking about because they're completely different animals. But nonetheless, the first battle of Bull Run / Manassas Junction is going to occur in July 21st, 1861. Irvin McDowell, the Union commander, is commanding the largest army ever seen on U.S. soil up to this point. And Lincoln, he's being pressured by the newspapers to move, and not to mention the fact that those 3-month volunteers are going to be out of uniform pretty soon if you don't use them. So just go ahead and march on the Confederates amassing at the city of Manassas Junction. McDowell is basically going to be resistant towards this, mainly because it's going to say, "Sir, my men are green," and Lincoln is going to say, "Well, your men might be green, but so are the Confederates, and you have more of them. So don't worry." Now, the Union plan is basically to march on Manassas Junction and defeat the Confederate army that's there under the command of Beauregard, the hero of Fort Sumter. All of this is going to be predicated on the ability to keep another Confederate army just outside, out in the Shenandoah Valley. Keep them there, because as long as McDowell and the Union Army are able to fight just Beauregard, they can easily win. The problem is that this other Confederate army is going to be linked between the Shenandoah Valley and Manassas Junction by railroads. Thus, we have the word junction in Manassas Junction, a junction of railroads. And so the Confederate Army in the Shenandoah, commanded by a man named Joseph E. Johnston, we'll see him later, is going to basically slip by the Union Army that's there monitoring him. And what will happen is that Johnston's men will show up on the day of first Bull Run or first Manassas, right at the right time and at the right place to stop the Union offensive. The funny thing about this battle is that you can tell exactly when the newspaper writers are going to go and file their stories. If you read the newspapers of July 22nd, 1861, it talks about Union victory because they're watching this battle and they're saying they're seeing that the Union has won. Well, Johnston's arrival and his command's arrival is going to happen right after all of these newspapermen leave. And one person in particular is going to be a man named Thomas J. Jackson, Stonewall Jackson. Jackson's going to show up and be at the right place at the right time with his men. And one thing about Jackson is he's a very stoic guy. He believes his death has already been predetermined, so he's not going to worry about it. So he's going to be very cool under fire. There'll be bombs blowing up, with bullets whizzing by him. He's just sitting on his horse. Theoretically, you get the image of him sitting on his horse while nothing is phasing the guy. And there's going to be a story about this other South Carolinian general who's going to basically say, one of two things. Either one is, there stands Jackson like a stone wall, rally behind the Virginians. It's a positive term. It means he's being resolute, he's being stoic, he's being brave in the face of fire. Rally behind him and we'll win. There's another version of the story that says that this South Carolinian said, there stands Jackson like a damn stone wall, meaning that he's not doing anything. He's just sitting there. We're getting slaughtered and he's just sitting there. What the heck is going on? Unfortunately, we have witnesses that say both things, and another unfortunate thing is the person who said it dies in the midst of the battle. So we don't know. We will never know the exact wording of the birth of Stonewall Jackson. But nonetheless, the name sticks to Jackson. Now, Jackson doesn't like it, or at least he's embarrassed by it. He wants it more to be attached to the brigade that he is commanding at the time, rather than him. But nonetheless, he arrives at the right time, and they are able to push the Union Army back. In fact, the Union Army is going to be routed, and it's going to run as fast as it can to Washington, D.C. Bull Run, therefore, is going to dispel any notion within the United States, at least, that this war is going to be bloodless or it's going to be short. This is going to be in for the long haul, and we're going to see that the Union finally takes Winfield Scott's suggestions much more seriously and will start implementing them.